So radical self-honesty begins with recognizing the patterning of our false self, of the parts of us that are covering over and trying to present something. And when they're outside of our awareness, okay, they're natural, but when they're outside of our awareness, they are like veils that keep us from realizing who we really are. They're veils that keep us in a confined sense of self that's usually got a flavor of deficient and fearful. So I'd like to share a very beautiful prayer that Elizabeth Lesser, author and very deep, wise being, this is what she says. She says, "This is my prayer to God every day. Remove the veils so I might see what is really happening here and not be intoxicated by my stories and my fears. Remove the veils so I might see what is really happening here and not be intoxicated by my stories and my fears." So in that spirit, that's really the heart of this practice, that we care about reality, that the only safety is reality, the only healing is reality. And I've seen over and over again the power of facing what's really here with honesty and kindness and how it frees. And one example that I shared in True Refuge, because the book True Refuge, because it touched me so much, a woman had come to a Buddhist retreat and she had asked for teachings on how to be present with someone who was dying. It was her husband. And they'd agreed that she was going to come and do some practice because they were Catholics, but they had decided not to bring in a priest and that she was really going to keep him company during his passing. So she wanted guidance on how to really do that well. And her history was this sense of not getting it right. And she had this belief she was going to blow it in some way. She had a lot of fear around how to be with this because it was the biggest and most important process she had ever engaged in, how to really accompany her husband. So she was basically saying, how do I do it right? And what's Buddhism 101 on being with the dying? And really, my response was, just be present with him and love him, whatever comes up. And because of her Catholicism, I had just within a month had been with Father Thomas Keating. We were both presenting at a conference on compassion, and he described his language for this kind of radical presence was, I consent. Whatever comes up, there's this honesty of really recognizing it, I consent. It's like saying yes in a cellular way. So I shared that with her and heard from her several weeks later, and here's what had happened for her. She said, she went through a process where she tried to say I consent and open to things, but she did say one morning he brought up, that he didn't have too long, and she said, oh, hon, you're doing really well right now. Let me make you some tea. And in that moment, she felt like 1,000 miles of distance opened up. What had she done? She denied, turned away, right? So while she was making tea, she had the prayer, please, may I bring presence and love to what's happening. And she said after those moments, whatever would come up, the fear, she'd say, she'd really contacted I consent. The feelings of doing it wrong, okay? I feel that, I consent. Her grief, the deep, deep grief, kept doing that. This is, she said, when I allowed myself to pause and come home to presence, I did know how to be with him. She intuitively sensed how to offer him whispered words of encouragement and caring touch and to sing to him and when to be really quiet. She said that in those moments of reality, of really contacting how it is with tenderness, She said there was no longer a sense of him and me, but rather we were a field of loving, total openness, warmth, light. He's gone, but that living field of loving is always with me. So this is the gift of radical honesty and radical acceptance of what comes up. That when we offer that quality of presence to our life, we come into a reality that has a timeless love. We come into a reality where that transparency, where something very sacred shines through. And whether somebody's alive or somebody's dead, we're in touch with something that is bigger than the coming and the going. That is what's possible.